What's up, Dragon Brood? Today, we have to talk about a real topic. One that several people have asked about, and it's how do I win more at my games? Particularly Magic, so that's what we're going to focus on, but I think these things apply to most games. But I'm going to be real with you. This is one of those videos where I sadly have to be a negative nerd, because this is not a fun conversation. This is not going to be enjoyable for a lot of people. Matter of fact, I would venture to guess many of you are going to downvote this video from the minute you hear the first thing I say. But you know what? At least get through the video and hear me out, because I think these are things that the average person who struggles at being good at their games needs to hear. So let's hop into this really tough conversation. Okay, let's start with one of the softer topics. And the first is that you're probably playing with too many distractions. And I think this applies to both paper and digital. Like, how many of you sit down to play Arena and you've got your dog or your kids or your cat or the TV's on in the background, or you're rushing to get to the next thing you want to do because maybe you're playing some Arena before you're going off to grocery shop or the movies, right? All of those things are going to distract you from making the best decisions while you play. So, of course, that's going to cut into your wins and losses, right? There's no way around that. But it's one of those things we don't think about. Even in paper, like I was saying, like you can show up to an event, but yes, these are our, I don't know, we'll call it escapism, right? But at the same time, if you're showing up to an event and you're worried about what's going on at home, you've got a work project when you get home to work on, maybe you've got a car problem, you've got this, you got that, like you're bringing all these to the table and you're not able to just zone in and focus on what you're doing. I see the difference even just having a separate room just to record in, right? It allows me to focus and get down to what I'm doing, and definitely changes the way whenever I'm playing. But I can tell you from personal experience, when I'm playing for myself versus when I'm streaming and I'm trying to communicate with the chat and maybe trying to work on a giveaway or respond to somebody asking a question while also trying to talk about my plays and everything else, well, it definitely leads to mistakes. There's no way around it, right? Your focus is just spread too thin. It happens. But number one, you just got to get that together. Like, take away some of your distractions and allow yourself to focus. All right, our second tip comes from a lot of people commenting on my videos that they say they really wish they had my demeanor, you know, that I handle losses really well or mistakes and whatnot. Well, the problem is it's practice. It comes with time, because too many of y'all just tilt too much. Like, your opponent top decks a thing and destroys your play, all of a sudden you can't focus on anything the rest of the game, right? Or maybe you draw 3 lands in a row and you just start blowing up and the game's over, right? Then the problem isn't even in that one moment. The problem is you let that carry over to your next game and the next game. And before you know it, you're not even concentrating playing your best because you're still thinking about something that happened 15 minutes ago. Or in the case of paper Magic, 2 hours ago, because some stuff was in round 1 and you're still worrying about it in round 3. Why? You can't change the past. All you can do is learn from it. Some of it's out of your control, sure. Some of it is in your control. And the best players in the world at whatever game it is, they learn to work through those problems. They're going to happen to everybody, right? You can't let those things beat you down. Like, if you do, you aren't going to be able to focus and be better. So take a breath, walk it off. Seriously, go pet your cat, go do something, right? Take the dog for a walk, grab your favorite drink or whatever, and just step away, take a couple of deep breaths and come back, right? You don't, like, everything that happens isn't the end of the world. They're not, these things aren't that important. Don't let them eat at your brain so much that you can't focus on the next thing at hand. Just reduce the tilt. It's hard, but practice. You'll do better. Okay, this one is one I see come up a lot. And some of y'all worry way too much about win rates of a deck, which, whole different discussion about tournaments and arena ladder and whatever. We'll set that aside for another time. But you gotta focus on just being better. Learn the intricacies of a matchup. Learn how the deck works in certain situations. Understand what sideboard cards matter. Understand how you can deal with the metagame and the direction that it's going. Like, that's more important than just win rates. Because here's the thing, at the end of the day, your opponents are going to know the same things you know, right? They're going to know which decks have been doing better on the ladder, doing better in tournaments or whatever. You're going to get your edge in understanding the little bitty plays that your cards do or have matchups have or whatever, right? That's what's going to matter. At the end of the day, just, oh, I'm going to play this best deck because it wins. I'm going to play this best deck because it wins. And then you're constantly chasing the dragon, as they say, right? Every tournament, every week, every whatever, you're just looking for the next deck to play. You're not taking the time to learn the actual deck you just built. And then at some point, you're burning through resources, whether that's wild cards, cash, store credit, whatever, to keep building that next deck. And then what? Right? You still don't have anything more to show for it than you had before. And to what end? If you're doing it just to get to Mythic, then just play the deck you know and just get better at it. Win rate is just one part of the puzzle. You have to understand the deck, understand the metagame, understand your sideboards, understand mulliganing, understand endgame strategy. There's a million things you can get better at. And if your deck is the second best deck or the third best deck, if you know everything about it inside and out, you're going to have an edge over the other person who just copied a deck to play that day. So yeah, win rate's important. All that other strategy, don't ignore it. Like, that has a good value all on its own. Seriously. All right, getting into some of the more grittier topics. Y'all got to have some self-evaluation. And when I say y'all, I mean the community. I'm not talking about you staring into my eyes right now down the camera, you. But, I don't know, what do they call that? The royal you? But seriously, some of y'all will blame a loss on every single thing under the sun except yourself. Like, oh, the RNG and the shuffler's broken. My opponent had more rares than I had, or wild cards. Oh, I only drew land. Or, I don't know. There's a million excuses people use, right? But at the end of the day, your opponents are dealing with the same things. So if you keep having all these same excuses over and over, well, one of two things is probably true. Either you are the most unlucky person in the history of the game, and you're getting all of the bad luck that your opponents magically never get, or you're making a lot of other mistakes you're not wanting to cop to. Now, don't get me wrong. Humans, we're bad at self-evaluation, just as a whole. But if every time you lose, your first thing to do is to look for an excuse from an outside source, well, at some point, these things aren't chasing you down and conspiring against you. Like, if it keeps happening, there's one common denominator, and it's you. Seriously. Like, you have to be able to evaluate yourself. And sometimes that may be recording your games and going back and watching them, or asking a friend to watch you play. You got to do something to say, okay, how could I have saved this matchup? Maybe here, what I made a misplay, how could I have gotten out of that? I mean, y'all have watched me here on this channel where I've posted things, and even while I'm in the middle of things, like, I made this play, but this would have been better. You got to quit blaming everything else. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's just bad luck, right? You draw 5 lands in a row. I don't know, like, things happen. We know that. It's part of playing a game optimization. But at the end of the day, you have to be able to look at yourself and evaluate your play openly and honestly, or you're just not going to get better. Another thing that's weird is some of you manage to put all this pressure on yourself when you're playing for some unknown reason. Like, you have these unrealistic expectations. Like, were you expecting to just never lose a game? Like, that's not gonna happen. We know that. Or did you assume that because you had a great idea it was supposed to work on the first try? I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, I probably trash 20 to 30 decks a season that I don't even get into a game because I don't think they're gonna work. So yeah, like, what you see on the channel is usually a result of 3 other decks failing, right? That's not a thing I even have to be concerned about. Like, I know a lot of ideas aren't gonna work. But if you're one of those people that goes, I have this idea, I got this card, I saw this thing work, oh man, it's gonna be awesome. And then it just doesn't, and then you're upset. It's like, well, you haven't put time into perfecting it. Or, I don't know, you play a tournament for the first time and then all of a sudden assume that you're gonna win or top 8 or top 16, and then you don't and you're dejected. And then you just let that carry over for so long. Like, you gotta set steps, you know? Small steps. so that way they're actually achievable and you can see your progress and whatever. But going from 0 to 100 just doesn't make a lot of sense. So yeah, realistic expectations, y'all. But with those expectations, we also have to admit, keep it within your skill level. And yeah, I'm basically saying some of you, I don't know if I'd say many, but some of you that are out there complaining, upset, mad, whatever, aren't nearly as good as you think you are. And yeah, this is the part that probably is going to get me all blown up and everything else. But the reality is, if you don't even win, not even win, if you can't consistently get 2 wins at your local F&M, then what makes you think that you're going to magically go from a Friday where you struggle with your like 20-person local tournament to just going to a Grand Prix with 2,000-3,000 people and magically cash in that event? Right? That leap doesn't even make sense. If you struggle to come up with a deck and then you magically aren't getting 7 wins in one of the Arena Challenge events, like, come on. Like, sure, find a deck playable, you hear it's good, whatever. Okay, maybe you can try to get to 4 wins or 5 wins or whatever. Cool, you did. You got a little back. Awesome. Let's try to do it again. Let's go for 6. Let's go for 7, right? Do it in a way that makes sense. I just don't understand. Like, I see it all the time, both paper and digital. Like, you have to understand your skill set. If you're playing casually, like after work for an hour or 2, your results are not going to be the same as one of the pro players that gets on and plays for 6 to 8 hours a day. Right? You have different goals. You have different times. You're learning different things. Like, you just have to keep it realistic. Like, I get it. We all want to win. We all want to do better. We all want to get more for our money. Like, all that makes perfect sense. But if it's just not there, it's not there. I mean, hell, even for me, I'm here building decks, doing stuff, making videos literally daily. And there's still things I look at and go like, yeah, no point in me signing up for that. Or, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Or even understanding that like some people are grinding for completely different reasons and they're going to be putting in that time and that effort and whatever. And I'm just not. I'm not that dedicated. I know I'm not. Not at least to the competitive side of things. So, yeah, it is what it is. But you got to be realistic with yourself. All right, and then the last point I want to bring up is that sometimes you finally feel like you figured it out, right? You have a little bit of success. You manage to do well in an event. Maybe you crush your F&M 2 weeks in a row. You find the deck that breaks the format, whatever. But then the very next season, or hell, not even next season, sometimes it's just a month later, 6 months later, the thing you're doing doesn't work anymore. Maybe people figured out your deck. Maybe the players around you have gotten better. And then all of a sudden you struggle. Just because you had success once doesn't mean you're going to have success again. You can't magically just decide, okay, that's it. I figured it out. I'm going to be great at this game for the rest of all time. It doesn't work like that. Especially a game like Magic. It's constantly changing. People are learning. There's articles, there's videos, there's tournaments happening. People can research literally 24 hours a day if they wanted to and probably not even consume all the content that's out there. So you have to understand your opponents are learning, the format's changing, new decks are coming out, new cards are being created, right? Like all these things affect stuff. So what works one season doesn't automatically carry over next season, right? Your strategies that you played may not work because some other deck comes along and changes the way people play. Sometimes a single card does. You know, I almost feel like those law commercials or whatever, the law text they give you after some gambling commercial or whatever, investment firms, right? That, you know, initial results at one point don't necessarily guarantee future results, right? Because that's what this feels like. Like, just because you have success once doesn't mean it's guaranteed in the future. You have to make that happen. And sometimes it's going to be easy, and sometimes the struggles are going to be more. It could be just the type of decks you like to play. It could be the metagame. It could be a ton of things. But don't just assume because you crushed a tournament, you cashed, you did something great one time, magically going to happen again. I mean, we see it even at the pro level where people do great for a season and then don't do anything for another year or two. Or people that start out slow and gradually build up and then they're one of the all-time greats, right? Like, that happens. There's levels to everything. Like, all you're going to do is disappoint yourself, frustrate yourself, and eventually become frustrated with the game if you just assume once you hit that peak, I don't know, get a free ticket to stay there? All right, that's it. Those are some strategy tips on just being better at your games, or particularly just trying to be better at Magic. And yes, like I said, this one feels like a bit of a downer and some complaining, and I apologize, but I feel like for as much positive content as I have out there, sometimes we got to have these hard conversations. But let me know, are there other tips, strategies, things that maybe you thought I should have mentioned, or is there anything here that you took offense to that I even said? I'm willing to talk about that. Also, as always, you know, you can come join our Discord if you want to talk about this or other things. We always have all kinds of conversations going on in there. And please, if you haven't, check out the memberships on the YouTube channel. And yeah, like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. That's all I have for you for now. We'll see you next time.